Hi and welcome to the Vape House channel. So I need you to picture a scene for me. So you're happily vaping along and all of a sudden you get a burnt, nasty, horrible taste, or juice starts leaking from the bottom of your tank. Time to change your coil, right? Not necessarily. Today we're going to be looking at some of the common reasons for that burning taste or that bubbling or juice leaking. Yeah, and we're going to be looking at what the common fixes are for those. So it might not be time to change your coil after all. Let's have a little look, shall we? Now I know that a burnt, nasty, horrible taste or a tank that's actually leaking juice is not what you want at 9:30 on a Sunday night when you're trying to relax. But before you reach for that new pack of coils, or before you start panicking on how you're going to get through to 9 o'clock in the morning when your vape shop opens, let's have a look at what causes some of these problems, and let's have a look at some of these common fixes so that hopefully we can get you back to vaping within a minute or two. So first, let's understand what a burnt coil is. Simply put, it means that the cotton that surrounds the outside of your coil isn't getting saturated with juice, which means that when you press the fire button on your vape device, rather than getting that nice clean taste of your e-liquid, what you're getting is a burnt, singed cotton taste instead. And there are a couple of reasons for that, and there's also a couple of simple fixes that you can try. Number one on this list is when you first just change your coil and you are getting that burnt taste. The reason for this is that we haven't quite let the juice soak into the cotton long enough, meaning that it's not fully saturated or it's not fully wicked. So how we get around that simply is when you first fill your tank of juice, when you have changed that coil, let it soak in for 10 to 15 minutes. And then give it 4 or 5 what we call primer puffs to really soak that juice into that cotton so that you can avoid the taste, the burnt taste. What's a primer puff? Well, I'll show you. A primer puff, quite simply, is when you grab the device without pressing the button, and we give it 4 or 5 puffs, And if you do that after letting your juice soak in for 10 to 15 minutes, then vaping it will be a nice, pleasant experience rather than that burnt taste. You'll also prolong the life of your coils as well. Now, number 2 should be self-explanatory, but it's one that I do personally all the time. And that's when you let your juice run below the fill line on your tank or on your pod. And if that happens, then the juice can't get through to the cotton to saturate it, which leads to then the burnt nasty taste. If you've done that, don't worry, just fill your tank back up above the fill line, okay? And simply then just give it a couple of primer puffs like what we spoke about earlier. And you should be back to vaping within no time. Number 3, you're vaping faster than your coil can wick, or you have your device turned up too high. Now, if you have your device turned up too high, if it's got adjustable wattage, just turn it down slightly. Usually on your pack of coils or on the side of the coil itself will give you the recommended wattage for each one of those coils, so try and stay within there. And if you're vaping too fast, which again I am very, very guilty for, then the primer puffs will help you get around that as well. What do I mean by vaping too fast? Well, I'll show you with my own kit because I'm a nightmare for doing it. Now, normal people would vape and they would be quite happy doing that. But me, being the greedy person that I am, I Yeah, so you'll see I'll take a lot of hits straight after each other. Yeah, now sometimes the juice won't get through to the cotton fast enough. And I will taste that happening, with a little bit of warning. So at that point, again, I go back to the trusty primer puff, just where I give it a couple of vapes, and then I know I'm good to go. Really, I should just slow down, but I don't. Now, number 4 could actually be down to the e-liquid that you're using. Yeah, for instance, if you're using a mouth-to-lung kit, which we would usually recommend using a 50/50 e-liquid, but you're trying to run a high VG juice through it, yeah, very often the wicking holes of the coil in a mouth-to-lung kit are too small, and they can't keep up with the thickness of the juice, leading to a dry hit. And if that's the case, simply move down to a 50/50 e-liquid, and your problem will be solved. The other problem that can happen from your e-juice can be down to the amount of sweetener within it. Again, I suffer with this problem because I like really sweet, strong-tasting e-liquids. Yeah, but I also accept the fact that the extra sweetener in those e-liquids will gump my coil up a little bit faster than, say a menthol or a basic blueberry or something like that. Yeah, I do manage to get a little bit longer out of my coils because when I taste that dry hit coming on from that, again, I go back to what we call the primer hits. Number 5, your coil's gone and it needs replacing. All right, people often ask how long coils last, and to be honest with you, an answer can't be given for that because it all depends on, your vaping style, the e-liquid that you're using, and the power level that you're putting through that coil. I tend to get, about 5 to 7 days out of my coil, but I'm a heavy vapor. Yeah, I know many people that might get 8, 9, 10 days out of their coil. I've even met people that have had 2 or 3 weeks out of their coils. Yeah, so really depends on how you use it and the sorts of juice and things like that you're using. Now let's have a look at what people call flooded coils, or gargling, or bubbling, whatever you want to call it, all means exactly the same thing. And if you think about it this way, if a burnt coil is not enough e-liquid getting through to the cotton, yeah, then a flooded coil is too much e-liquid getting through to that coil. Yeah, and again, there's a couple of simple reasons for that. Yeah, and there is, a couple of simple easy fixes. So let's have a look at those. Now, number 1, is dragging too hard for the power setting or the capability of your device. Yeah, if you're taking really strong, heavy hits, and maybe you don't have the power turned up enough, all right, or maybe your device isn't meant for that style of vaping, then you're going to drag too much juice through to the wicking and through to the coil. And when you press the button, it's not producing enough power to vaporize the juice that's come through, so it only has one place to go. And usually you will find that it'll come out at the bottom of the tank through the airflow, okay? Number 2, all right, there's a vacuum issue, okay, which basically means, that maybe there's your glass is cracked or it all hasn't been done up correctly. Yeah, so have a check of those things. Number 3, you're using a juice that is too thin. This often happens with sub-ohm devices or juices that are meant for high VG juice, where somebody will use a 50/50 in them and they're just too thin for the size of the juice flow holes. Yeah, meaning that too much of it gets through, doesn't get vaporized, and again it leaks. So we recommend usually when using a sub-ohm device or a high-powered device to use a high VG e-liquid. Number 4, leaving your device for long periods of time. yeah, without actually vaping it. And I don't mean half an hour or 45 minutes. I mean sort of, days, just on your kitchen side or whatever. And next thing you know, you go up and grab your device 3 or 4 days later and there's a puddle of juice around there. Well, if you're not vaping the juice, eventually it's going to get through the coils anyway. And it's only going to come out one place, and that's through the bottom of the airflow. Yeah, the other reason can be, especially in the summer months, if we're leaving the device in warm areas or really hot areas, that thins the juice. And the same as when we use a juice that's too thin, it'll just get through. Yeah, and again, we're going to have that leaking issue at the bottom of the device. Now, you will notice that when we are going through a flooded coil, I'm not giving solutions as we go, because really speaking, there's one main solution that we would use to unflood a coil. Now, purposely, and I don't know if the camera is going to pick this up, but purposely I flooded this little Arcus earlier. Yeah, and you can see that there's bits of juice. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up or not. Yeah, but there's bits of juice coming down the side there, meaning, okay, that the coil is actually flooded. Yeah, how I did that is the coil that's in here, I think, is something crazy like 110 watt coil. Yeah, and I basically vaped it on 50 or 60 watts. Yeah, and by vaping it on 50 or 60 watts, meaning there's not enough power to vaporize the juice, I managed to flood the coil, which is why I've got the bits of juice down the side here. Yeah, now hopefully I'm going to solve that problem in a couple of simple steps. Yeah, and hopefully it works. Otherwise, this isn't getting into the video, that's for sure. Okay, so what I would do first of all, okay, is I would grab some kitchen roll or some blue roll, take the tank off the device. Yeah, I am going to wipe that bit of e-juice off there. Okay, I would open the airflow right up like it is at the moment. Tissue at the bottom, so it almost acts like it's catching. And I'm going to blow straight through. Rather than drag it through, I'm going to blow to try and force any excess e-liquid through the tank and onto the kitchen roll. I just got covered in e-juice. And as I'm doing this, there's little bits of e-juice now starting to come out through the bottom of the tank. All right, and hopefully, I've got juice on the top of the mod there as well. Now, when I put this back on the top of this, now you might take 2 or 3 or 4 blows to get all that juice out. Yeah, then I'm going to take the device up to the recommended power. In this case, I'm going to put it to the higher end of that, which is about 110 watt. Now, before I vape it, I'm going to give it a couple of... Okay, so the first one, there was definitely a bubbling of juice there. The third or the fourth one now, there's not. So hopefully I'm going to be able to vape this and I'm not going to be getting a mouthful of juice. Let's try. And that's definitely working, and it's definitely sorted it out. I now no longer have juice coming out the bottom of my airflow, yeah, and it's vaping properly, and it's vaping how it should. So remember, take the tank off, put it into the tissue, blow through. Any excess juice then will be caught in the tissue, yeah. Put the tank back on, give it a couple of dry burns, yeah, and hopefully then what will actually happen is that the excess juice would have gone and we can go back to having a pleasant vape experience. Now, through this video, would we have solved all problems? No, but I hope we would have solved a lot of the common problems. And hopefully it's been informative. Hopefully it's been helpful. If it has and you'd like to keep up with further videos, please like and subscribe. And until next time, from our house to yours, be safe, be happy, be kind, and get your vape on.